Hello, thank you for joining me. Today I'm speaking with my educator's hat on, so to speak, although music education will feature in the discussion later on. For now, my question is the education system failing our children? I think in many ways it is, and has been for quite some time, despite the dedication and hard work of countless educators around the world. Over the last 20 years, I have, in the role of school principal, repeatedly stressed in addresses to various combinations of students, teachers and parents the need for students, especially those working towards university entrance, to embrace and prepare for the fact that even in the early stages of their careers, their chosen occupations would be likely to change dramatically or even disappear due to advances in automation and computerization. They would need to become lifelong learners. In those days, artificial intelligence hardly figured in the public consciousness. But now, and I mean right now, we are faced with a situation in which employment opportunities and job security for graduates are diminishing dramatically due to breakthroughs in AI and robotics. A situation aggravated by an oversupply of people with degrees. Consider this recent news report from CBS.
The unemployment rate for new college grads has recently surged, and some economists say businesses are now replacing entry-level jobs with artificial intelligence. Here's CBS's Ali Bauman.
Front gate.
22-year-old Michael Macaluso just earned his degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Connecticut.
You all good?
But this summer, he's back helping manage his hometown pool. He hasn't found a job in his field despite applying for nearly 200 positions.
Did you have any expectations about what the job market would be like when you graduated?
I was told by a lot of people that I was going to get a job right out of college, and then all of a sudden, there's no jobs.
There is a great deal of doom and gloom surrounding the whole subject of AI, much of it justified, some of it, such as predictions of no jobs at all in a few years' time, possibly alarmist. Some downplay the effect that AI is having on job openings. But to my mind, there can be no doubt that AI is already having a profound impact on the jobs market and at an accelerating pace. Geoffrey Hinton, a Nobel Prize winner and the so-called godfather of AI, holds a less than optimistic view.
In the past, new technologies have come in which didn't lead to joblessness. New jobs were created. So the classic example people use is automatic teller machines. When automatic teller machines came in, a lot of bank tellers didn't lose their jobs. They just got to do more interesting things. But here, I think this is more like when they got machines in the Industrial Revolution, and you can't have a job digging ditches now because a machine can dig ditches much better than you can. And I think for mundane intellectual labor, AI is just going to replace everybody.
So what is the solution? Is there a solution? I think perhaps there is a partial one. Not one that will stop AI replacing people, but one that might help people cope with the situations they find themselves in. It starts with the education system, in which since around the middle of the 20th century, right up to the present day, young people have attended their schools day in, day out, and dutifully done their work, spurred on by the story that if they work hard, get good exam results, secure a place at university and earn a degree, then they'll get a good job. But this is just the story. And as we see now, it's a story which is rapidly becoming something of a fairy tale. And I'm not too sure there will be a happy ending. We just heard from a young engineering graduate who has struggled to find work relevant to his training. He is but one of the millions of casualties worldwide of companies' drastic reductions in the recruitment of entry-level personnel, because AI can perform their tasks much more quickly and cheaply.
A well-known and respected tech CEO, Dario Amodei, who heads a cutting-edge AI company called Anthropic, is raising alarms tonight about AI's potential impact on employment that could soon be felt. While he says AI can lead to incredible advancements like medical breakthroughs and boost the economy, he believes it could also lead to half of entry-level white-collar jobs disappearing and 10 to 20% unemployment in the next 1 to 5 years. I spoke to him just before air about that and other implications he thinks AI may have on society.
I've been building AI for over a decade. And I think maybe the most salient feature of the technology and what is driving all of this is how fast the technology is getting better. I really worry, particularly at the entry level, that the AI models are very much at the center of what an entry level human worker would do.
Half of entry-level white-collar jobs disappearing, he says. Some might say this is scaremongering and the reality isn't all that bad. After all, it's been reported that several companies are already walking back their overly enthusiastic embrace of AI to replace people. The Swedish fintech company Klarna, for example, after a bold shift to AI-driven customer service, is now rehiring human agents that, having realized the limitations of machine-learned responses in interactions that require trust and empathy. While that is a positive development, I would only be cautiously optimistic, bearing in mind that intelligent systems are developing at blistering speeds, and so the mistakes they often make, as well as problems with their ways of interacting with humans, will undoubtedly be ironed out. Add to my cautious optimism my fear that the majority of corporations will continue to put profit over people and ruthlessly reduce their workforce costs. Corporate greed is not to be underestimated. So I want to explore the burgeoning problem of graduate unemployment in the age of AI and how schools are failing to address this adequately, by which I mean failing to equip students with the abilities and qualities they need to adapt to increasingly volatile professional prospects and to gain some semblance of satisfaction from the enforced leisure that awaits many of them. As a former school principal, having worked in various parts of the world, I can affirm that over the last 20 years at least, schools have increasingly regarded higher education, university that is, as the only valid post-school destination for their students. The education highway has only one exit. And since students have to compete for their chosen university places, aiming for the highest possible grades in advanced level subjects has for quite some time been the norm. In turn, exam results and acceptance by leading universities have come to be viewed as the principal indicators of schools' effectiveness, and in the private sector, key components of their marketing. Parents understandably are drawn to schools higher up in the exam league tables, since they too believe that outstanding final grades leading to university graduation are essential to their children's eventual success in getting good jobs. That's to say, well paid and secure, with good promotion prospects. Governments are not much help, since their only real educational aim in most cases is to prepare students to contribute to economic growth, reducing unemployment, increasing GDP, and so on. They too emphasize exam outcomes, which in turn have become the main criteria by which schools' performance is judged. So exam results have become the more or less universally recognized metric, but not just any exam result. The STEM subjects reign supreme, the subjects that schools, parents, and governments see as key to securing employment in the modern, knowledge-based economy. A vivid example of a government's enslavement to science, technology, and mathematics, along with a couple of languages and humanities subjects, was the educational abomination known as EBAC. Mercifully, it is soon to be ended. All this trickles down to the students themselves, of course. I can testify that in my experience, the majority of high school students I worked with set their sights on medicine, engineering, and accounting as future careers. Good jobs, requiring good grades in the important subjects, and they chose their electives accordingly. Subjects apart from STEM, aspects of humanities such as languages, history, and geography, as well as human sciences like psychology and sociology, did generate a modicum of interest. But the arts, physical education, sport, hardly any at all. The majority of stakeholders saw these, and most likely still see them, as mere diversions from the nitty-gritty of earning a living and of little relevance to the modern economy. I'll have more to say about this in a moment. So what does all this mean for schools and their students, given that intensive study of STEM leading to degrees in related subjects increasingly seems to lead to unemployment or to positions rendered temporary by AI? Well, first, let's take a look at the impact of AI on one or two of the occupations that high school students and undergraduates are working toward right now. In the medical profession, diagnostic imaging analysis, for example radiology, and routine administrative tasks such as record keeping are likely to be automated, and in many cases already are. Medical assistants performing routine diagnostics and general practitioners handling basic consultations will probably find a great many of their tasks handed over to AI, thus reducing their numbers. But complex decision-making in patient care and surgical procedures requiring human dexterity and judgment will need to stay with humans for the time being, though it's not difficult to imagine robotics playing a role in surgery far beyond that of current systems. Lawyers will find, or have already found, that document review and contract analysis, as well as legal research, can be handled by AI. So the roles of paralegals and junior lawyers focusing on repetitive tasks will be reduced. But in the areas of client counseling, courtroom representation, and strategic planning, humans will continue to be needed for quite some time. Engineers conducting routine design tasks and simulations will soon have these taken over by AI if they haven't already been. By way of illustration, and out of curiosity, I asked ChatGPT to create a design brief for a suspension bridge along the lines of those to be found in Dusseldorf in Germany. This is what it gave me, complete with diagrams. Now, clearly I'm not an engineer, but for a non-specialised application, this strikes me as quite impressive. It also tells me two things. Firstly, there is no doubt that a dedicated AI platform could handle most technical aspects extremely quickly, doing the work of several engineers in a fraction of the time. But secondly, and importantly, that it is still a long way behind humans in terms of aesthetic judgment. Here is the AI-designed bridge compared to one of the real ones. Finally, a look at the role of AI in a customer service environment. I'll leave this to Geoffrey Hinton, who this time has a more personal story.
People use this phrase, they say, AI won't take your job. A human using AI will take your job.
Yes, I think that's true. But for many jobs, that'll mean you need far fewer people. My niece answers letters of complaint to a health service. It used to take her 25 minutes. She'd read the complaint and she'd think how to reply and she'd write a letter. And now she just scans it into a chatbot and it writes the letter. She just checks the letter. Occasionally she tells it to revise it in some ways. The whole process takes her 5 minutes. That means she can answer 5 times as many letters. And that means they need 5 times fewer of her.
So it's clear that while some roles, particularly entry-level ones, will be taken over completely by AI, as we've just seen, others will evolve using AI tools. Those requiring professional judgment, born out of long experience, as well as the application of intuition, understanding and empathy, are likely to remain unchanged. The task of a doctor delivering an unwelcome diagnosis will need to remain with a human being for the foreseeable future. The rise of AI will, of course, see new jobs created. AI ethics consultants, data scientists, system trainers, AI literacy trainers, and so on. Emergent occupations in this transformed employment landscape will undoubtedly provide opportunities. But as yet, no one knows precisely what skills the new opportunities will require. This means that individuals will need to be proactive in identifying and preparing for changing career paths throughout their careers. Again, they will need to be lifelong learners. So what evidence is there that the school system overall is adapting in terms of how it prepares people for the frequent upskilling or reskilling required to adjust to new or modified roles, and how does it equip them for having no job at all? Not very much, I'm afraid. Although in many countries, governments and institutions are actively reshaping curricula and teacher training, especially with regard to the use of AI, which in principle is welcome, the situation is far from consistent, and there is a persistent preoccupation with its applications in the workplace. In other words, preparation for employment, which may or may not be available. Even where schools adopt inspiring mission statements and educators pay lip service to adaptability, creativity, and lifelong learning, the day-to-day operation of most schools is still geared towards the traditional factory model of education. Young people with diverse abilities and aptitudes emerge as prospective employees, uniformly tailored to a narrow range of real-world roles. In this context, assessment systems are still exam-centric and credential-driven. League tables, rankings, and accountability measures prioritize university acceptance rates and graduate outcomes. Course validation, for example BTEC, and careers guidance is still framed around employability. In an environment where achievement continues to be measured by success in entering the world of work, and not by well-being, civic responsibility, integrity, empathy, or self-discipline, the structural possibility of fewer jobs overall is rarely addressed. There is little to suggest any planned preparation for enforced free time. How people can spend their days meaningfully and live their best possible lives in the absence of a traditional job. The alternative could be the catalogue of potentially catastrophic consequences that a life without work can have for young people. Depression, stress and anxiety, as well as feelings of inadequacy and exclusion, not to mention the deepening prejudicial effect that unemployment can have on future job applications. There's also the lack of financial and domestic independence. Studies report that in the UK, approximately 28% of young adults aged 20 to 34 still live with their parents, while in the USA, around 52% of those aged 19 to 29 are in similar situations. These factors can only serve to intensify the impact of being without work. To live well in a world with less work requires psychological and emotional preparation for instability, as well as for citizenship, creativity and care. But paradoxically, the very disciplines that directly or indirectly promote the necessary personal and emotional growth, that's to say those that are skills-based, with affective and psychomotor as well as cognitive elements, and which are developed through bodily engagement or sensory experience rather than theoretical knowledge, are in almost terminal decline, pushed aside by STEM. But these diminishing disciplines are precisely the ones needed to cultivate the qualities that could enable those facing periods of unemployment better to deal with their situation. And it's noteworthy that these are the very same areas of activity that can engender the attributes needed to do the jobs that AI can't replace and maybe won't ever be able to replace. A detailed description of the mechanisms by which the benefits of these fields of study accrue is beyond the scope of this video. But I can state that there is no end of recent neuroscientific research to support the assertion that regular and frequent practice of a combination of art subjects, physical education, and sport develop personal attributes such as empathy, discipline, self-confidence, and resilience, as well as intellectual growth. Now, this is not to say that everyone has to become a musician, dancer, painter, or poet. If young people just do these things consistently for long enough, and to the best of their ability, whatever that might be, it will pay dividends. And it's almost ironic that overall academic achievement is also likely to be enhanced. Perhaps a model geared to student outcomes more along the lines of the International Baccalaureate Organization's learner profile would be beneficial in preparing students for a proactive and creative approach to the difficulties that many are already facing and greater numbers surely will face in the future. Here's a quick summary of the learner profile. The aim is to produce individuals who are inquirers, who are knowledgeable, who are thinkers and communicators, who are principled, open-minded and caring, but who are risk-takers and reflective, balanced individuals. IB schools certainly don't neglect STEM, nor should they, but they do understand that the learner profile cannot be realised without breadth and balance in the curriculum. Of course, school administrators would face challenges in accommodating the necessarily wider range of subjects, at least post 14 years. Curriculum time is not unlimited, but challenges are there to be overcome. And since it's clear that a continuing overemphasis on STEM might in some ways be counterproductive, then there is some justification for balancing the importance and therefore the time allotted to science, art and humanities. But for the moment, we are in this situation where despite growing graduate unemployment and the threats to jobs triggered by AI, students are still sold the same story. Work hard, get a degree, and you'll get a good job. Exam results, especially in STEM subjects, are still the main focus of governments, education providers and parents, while the arts and more broadly cultural subjects continue to be cut. Most schools don't aim to optimize human growth and self-fulfillment, whatever they may claim. They aim only to optimize fitness for contributing to the economy and its growth, habitually training students for jobs that no longer exist or will soon cease to exist. This needs to change. According to Forbes, for today's graduates, survival in the job market will depend less on technical credentials alone and more on pairing AI literacy with judgment, adaptability, and the human skills that machines as of yet cannot replicate. I would add that their survival in the absence of jobs will depend on the qualities we've discussed, which include positivity, creativity, and a capacity for the constructive use of time. So what do you think? Do you agree that the education system is letting our children down? If you agree or if you don't, or if you have other thoughts on the subject, please let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely interested in your views on this topic. If you've at least found this food for thought, please consider giving a like and subscribing to the channel. More purely educational content is coming soon. But for now, thank you for joining me, and I very much hope that you will join me again.